I am. Oh. Yeah, yeah. Before I start my reading, I will tell you in the front on the table are lots of books. They are very interesting for the people who are interested in the history about the Queen Anne, what I will speak about, and she will speak about every our first martyrs and everything. You can check it on the table, and some of places you can see what's done. Oh yeah, sorry. Then a long time ago, when I just came as guest to our fellowship, Susan Minello became one of my 3 godmothers. After I joined as a member in this congregation, the other 2 were Beth and Margaret Canavan. Susan back then prepared for us a love feast, a tradition Moravian brothers coming together for sermons. Do you remember? The tasteful sweet bread and coffee. Everybody liked it. And I was in heaven, a place that cherished the history of my country and the Protestant tradition born there. Already then I decided to tell you more about this history, because when you Google the history of the Unitarian Fellowships movement, it's dated much later, but in reality started back then. The real roots are in the teaching of the followers of Jan Hus, in English usually called John Hus, and the teaching of Jan, also John Amos Comenius, bishop of the First Unitarian Front Room, later called Moravian Brothers. He is here under, this is the Comenius. Yeah, yeah, that is the Comenius. And like I said, he was first Unitas Fratrum bishop, and he was also called teacher of the nations, because he was the first person who started teaching kids and also girls. I will tell you this later. He was the one also who first this name for the community, Unitas Fratrum. They are brothers. They are brothers, and they are. He was on pilgrimage through whole Europe and looking for refuge. He came to his exile place in the land of his followers and friends, the Hungarian Princess Rákosi, in 1650 in Transylvania. There he took the position of professor on the first Hungarian Protestant university. And it's the same place when the new wave of Moravian brothers started a school which is working to today. It college to do history. If I felt called to this story a short time ago, when the members of the congregation have been called to speak about their connection to experience in the church. And here it is, a story of a movement that helped from many Protestant movements, first in Europe and later in the whole world. This is a story about a dream that the whole world can end wars and live in peace like brothers. And it started then. It was his theory, and he was the one who had philosophy that the world will be in peace, and what we are today. The Moravian Brethren Church is what is called a pre- or proto-Protestant movement that changed Europe later and also divided the church into two very important movements in a story about the beautiful Princess Anna from Bohemia, also Anne from Luxembourg, this both her titles, and Good Queen of England. Beth is a great narrator. You can enjoy the story.
Thank you. Well, this has been a wonderful experience for me. I have to say that at the beginning because of the translations. And Vera's got a wonderful, is she related to you, the woman that was helping you? The woman that helped you with the translations? Clarissa and her son. Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. Beginning of the Unitarian Fellowship lies in the roots of Unitas Fratrum. We have here in Texas a more conservative unity of the brethren than the Czechoslovak Hussite Church, based in the Czech Republic and Slovakia, but both have the same theological traditions. Vera spares you the very complicated details of these little groups, with very specific differences between them. The important thing is to understand that all this happened 100 years before we started speaking about the Lutheran Church and modern Protestantism. It needed a 30 years long war between Catholics and Protestants in Europe, and later the re-Catholicization of Bohemia, which was a cradle of protest against the Catholic Church. This was a very bloody suppression of the Protestant movement, destroying the very modern educational system where the boys and girls learned together in the 16th century. This led to the first big emigration of the best professors, artists, freethinkers, researchers, young explorers, you name it, to the Protestant part of Europe, and many to the New World, which promised freedom of religion. I will tell you more about Jan Amos Comenius, John Comenius, who was a bishop, theologian, and philosopher who was one of the leaders in the movement of followers of Jan Hus. John Comenius was also called the teacher of nations. John Comenius had to flee to Moravia. This is where the name Moravian Brethren came from. He then went to Leszno, Poland, where he lost his whole family and also originals of his works in a fire. He then went to Oxford, England, and later he was a personal teacher for young Queen Christina from Sweden. Although he was offered to go to the new colonies and to lead the university there, today's Harvard, he chose to stay in Europe. He was already sick and tired from leaving again and again. He stayed with his big supporters in Amsterdam, in today's Netherlands, Holland, and worked on his idea about peace and understanding among nations until the end of his life. He was buried in Fort Naarden, close to Amsterdam. His books, Labyrinth of the World and Paradise of the Heart, are considered the best theological books on the teaching of the Moravian Brethren. It is a theological metaphor, but also the best literary work of Baroque literature. His pedagogical works are still considered very modern until today and are the grounding stone of school systems in Northern European countries and here in the US as well. The Moravian Brethren, Unitas Fratrum, found freedom in the new territories where religious liberty was being practiced. Like John Comenius in exile in Bohemia, the Brethren were forced to go underground. Their schools were closed, their books were burned. They fled first to Northern Europe to the Lissa in German, in today's Poland, and then had to flee again. They decided to build a new refuge in the New World. They first went to Pennsylvania, where in 1741, David Nitschmann and Count Zinzendorf brought a small group to find a place for their mission in the colony. On Christmas Eve that year, they opened a mission named Bethlehem. They found their freedom and started right away a missionary work between Native Americans and later everywhere on other continents too. They were the first Protestant church to do missionary work and also the first Protestant denomination to minister to slaves. As we already mentioned, in 1650, Comenius found refuge in Hungary and Transylvania, the stronghold of the land of Princess Koschki. In the city of Sarospatak, he tried to put into practice his school reform program by establishing the Pan-Sophic School, which still exists today. He stayed for 4 years and wrote educational works and political tracts. If you're close to the Methodist Church, you probably heard the story about John Wesley's voyage to the colonies, where he first met the Moravian brothers during a terrible storm the ship found itself in. The mast of the ship was broken. Everybody on the ship was panicked and scared. Only the Moravian brothers stayed calm, singing hymns and praying. He was so impressed with the depth of their faith and strength of it, contrary to his own self, for he was not calm and was scared too. After this trip, he stayed with them in London and later in Savannah, Georgia, where he built a strong fellowship with the help of the leaders of Salem, and then he separated from them. He soon established his own church after he visited a Moravian meeting in London and visited with the leaders of the church in May 1738. To this day, May 24 is remembered as the beginning of John Wesley's Enlightenment and the beginning of the Methodist Church. He traveled to Herrenhut in Saxony, Germany, to study the place which was the heart of the Herrenhut movement. He came back stronger in the faith to the New World to lead the Methodist churches and some Episcopal denominations on Moravian brother principles. The European part of the followers of the teaching of the Moravian brothers included Martin Luther, the Calvinist movement, and many others. And where is this young, beautiful princess I promised you at the beginning? Anna of Bohemia, Anna of Pomerania, Anna of Luxembourg. These are her titles. Became the wife of Richard II, the King of England. Known as Good Queen Anna, who protected the poor people of London, the rebellious lords and very modern priests of the Anglican Church. Maybe you know her from a beautiful poem written about her from a cherished poet, Geoffrey Chaucer, who wrote the Canterbury Tales. Maybe also from William Shakespeare's famous tragedy about Richard II. King Richard called her, quote, "my beloved Bohemian," unquote. She came to England at the tender age of 15 years to be the bride to Richard, who was himself just 14. He was a child king. I guess we don't need to say that, do we? First, she was not welcomed at all by citizens of London. She didn't bring a dowry. On the contrary, they had to pay for her. A lot. She soon showed the Londoners what a treasure she was. She was beautiful, educated, spoke and read several languages, a very devoted believer. And she brought with her illuminate scrolls of Evangelium in 3 languages. Both teenage kids fell in love. She was crowned the Queen of England the next day after the wedding. When she fell on her knees before her husband to speak up for the prisoners or convicts, Richard went down to her, took her by the hand, and seated her next to him. She was his queen. He did not fulfill her wishes every time, but always found the way to a milder punishment. One of the people she tried to protect was John Wycliffe. During the time of disputes with Pope Gregory Gregor XII. Anna sent some Wycliffe works to Prague and invited young theology students to London and to Oxford University. This is how his teachings came to Prague and the Prague University, today named after her father, Karl IV, Emperor of the Roman Empire, King of Bohemia. These are the very important ideas which inspired the teaching of Johannes Hus, in Czech called Master John Hus, a rector of Prague University, about whom Vera was speaking in the beginning. His teachings were the origin of the Moravian Brothers movement, coming in full circle, teaching the principles of love, celebrating love feast like Sue Manello showed us, searching for peace, brotherhood, and service to God and the community have come to an end, but also to the beginning, because herein lie the roots of our Unitas Fratrum, Unitarian fellowship. Amen. Thank you, Vera.